So I'm gonna be honest, this caught me by surprise because I'm over here trying to go through Trom and I'm scrolling through the timeline and I get immersed in all of this heat. There's so much going on, I completely forgot the time of the year. It is around that time. We got the JP anniversary on deck and they just released some of the portraits that will be leading for the year. And I gotta say, they all look fantastic. They all look good, as they usually do, but in this case, and this has to be my favorite, this one with Ash is just like ridiculously good. By the way, if you didn't go through LB6, Ash is Morgan. She's pre-time skip Morgan, so this is just another version of her. I would not say that this is a perfect design. If you remember the video that we did about the worst FGO ascensions, even when Ash came out on the 8th anniversary, I really liked her original outfits. I feel like by far this is one of Takeuchi's best designs because this is Takeuchi. I know people give him a lot of flack because again, he's an OG, and once you get all these new guys coming in, these new flavor of the months, people forget their roots. People forget Takeuchi is where it all started, and he does have some really great designs, as we've already been through some before, especially going into his latter years like now. It kind of takes a lot of different paths of characters that we've seen before, and also some from Ash as well, starting off with her hat. You know, Ash is one of the first characters to come in with the OG wizard hat. I've always loved that, considering that that's something that nobody really has, because everybody now moves in accordance to things that are a lot more modern. So the closest thing that we'd have to a wizard hat is like OG Asclepius, where you're wearing some type of hood, or Medea wearing a hood. It doesn't give off the Magus vibe, it gives off a real wizard vibe. It's like real Harry Potter-esque, straight out of Stonehenge, which is also very fitting for her character considering how old she is anyway. She outdates nearly everybody here to begin with, so I can't say that I'm necessarily too surprised. This jacket looks fire. I see that he went out of his way to do a lot of layers here. It even feels like some of it is just there for the sake of showing off almost. There is a lot of attention to detail in nearly everything, not just the jacket itself, but the entire design in terms of her matching in this orange and black palette. At least that's the way that it appears on my screen. It's like this orange gradient, which you can tell by the shading. And that's also one huge thing to point out, the shading, or in this case, the way that he used it, the lighting is easily the best out of the 3 fits that we got out of this, and it makes such a huge difference, especially once you get on the inside of the jacket, and you can even see it on the bottom of the hat here. There's a lot of different places with it over the design, to be honest, but that's where it stands out the most. Just from experience, when I used to shade thumbnails before, shading can make a design go from a 10 to a 20, and I do mean that literally. Like, the design could have been fine on its own without the shading, but when you make that additional effort to go back over it several times, even if it's not a lot, just to make it pop, just to make it look and feel more real. And that's the thing about it, it looks so real, which if you just leave it blank, it'll look like a drawing, it'll feel like one, but this feels so intense when you take it all in. And I'm looking at all of these, by the way. I'm not just looking at her, because I think they're all good. I know a lot of people don't really give a fuck about Asclepius. I think that he looks good. I think that some of his original fits look good. So to see that they all got done justice is really dope to me. But when I look at the quality in terms of the way that this gradient is being worked, and I look at the coloring between her design and the other two, it's like eons of difference in quality. Really like this book, which I was a huge fan of, just like the hat in her original form anyway. This would just be in a different palette. A very precise hint of the glow on the outside, which I am catching, and you have to really be paying attention to see it. Really the only other place in the outfit that the glow's there is in her staff, if you can see it towards the top. Just little things like that you wouldn't notice, because again, you're taking it all in. You have what appears to be a laurel wreath on the front, very nice touch, and something that I'm honestly just now noticing because I'm so captivated by the outfit itself, it looks like, well, it doesn't even look like, she has 3 pigtails. Because when I first looked at it, I'm looking at the right and the middle one, but I'm now noticing the one on the left. That's very unique. You got the red glasses and the blue eyes, which literally match nothing else going on here, by the way, but it works. And honestly, I like that curveball at times, so it feels like you're not doing too much. There's a certain element to make things match when they aren't necessarily supposed to go together. And he honestly did that perfectly, because while there isn't too many colors here, it's way different from everything else that she has on. Man, this is incredible. She's got the thong on, preferably has to be a G-string, really the only thing that's riding up high like that, and this is done on purpose in addition to the very high shorts, so they kind of bounce off each other. And again, the orange belt going along with everything else in the design like we've seen before. Now, getting into this lower half, I will say, you know, just like the eyes and the glasses, this is very interesting to me, because usually something like this would bother me, right? Everything on the top half of her design works in its own accord. And then, you know, you have the staff, but it's all black and orange. Everything is black and oranged out. And then you get to the other half of her design, the lower half, and then you have a pure white and black. Usually this would rub me as this is out of place. But the way that he did it, instead of me feeling that way, I more so feel like the top half balances out the bottom half, if that makes any sense. And honestly, she's so white anyway, she's so pale skinned that it doesn't really detract from anything. Like, the focal point here, of course, is the orange, because that's what jumps out at the screen at you. You know, black is black, it's gonna go with anything, so there's not too much to be said there in terms of there being a clash. And even if the white were to clash, it couldn't, because it kind of just fades into her skin tone anyway. It's not necessarily anything that your eyes are following until you overlook the entire design. I'm more so pulled in by all of this orange. It's just the dominating factor here. And then, of course, the classics, the thigh high boots, which again, you can see that he even put design to those. He's got the thigh strap to match with the jacket, her top, the book. I gotta give credit where credit is due, man. I don't know about anybody else, but at this point, anything that Ash has on is for sure Hall of Fame for me, because even the first 3 outfits on the OG fit were all perfectly fine, completely different from each other. And that's another thing that we're not even considering for all 3 of these portraits. That's just one ascension, really. So there could really be more to it, and I'm just blown away by what we have right here. One more thing before I get off this one. I specifically remember in the 8th anniversary, and that's part of the reason why this was so funny to me. Everybody was complaining that they made Ash the anniversary servant because they felt like there had already been enough Saberface praise at the time. A lot of people felt like, oh, we're done with it, give somebody else a chance. Casual Medusa, hello. They literally just had an entire Lost belt. They felt like they were wearing it out. And then you have the next year, and Type Moon says, you know what? We hear your calls, and we're gonna hit you with another Saberface just for the road. These guys are funny. It's like they know. At this point, I'd almost argue that they're just trying to make a certain part of the fandom mad. Like, you can't be doing this on accident, right? There's no way. Them boys really said, oh, you tired of the Saberfaces? Let me hit you with just one more Saberface. Ironically, I don't know why people are so mad, because the Saberfaces are eating right now. You can say that there's too many of them realistically, and there are, but you can't say that they're bad. So next we got Asclepius putting on for India. Putting on for India? When I come to India? By the way, if you're wondering why he's wearing this as a Greek servant, we did get him introduced in the Indian Lost Belt. Man, I'm gonna tell you, I'm really a fan of every single one of these. Admittedly, design-wise, I actually feel like this is a lot more complex than what we had going on with Ash. But once again, his artist, which by the way is Tsiah, in case anybody needs to know, Tsiah actually has no other servants. As far as I can see, Tsiah only does CEs and Asclepius. gorgeous. And so it makes a lot of sense that there will be an additional effort here because they're working with a lot less servants than everybody else. Way more complex than not just Ash, but also Hokusai as well, if you look at her design, and we're going to get into her after. But there's a lot of asymmetrical elements going on with this fit, which I absolutely love, as I mentioned before. Big fan of the daring, right? I feel like asymmetrical designs are very daring. I don't really give too much praise to somebody wearing a safe fit. And if you know what a safe fit is, I think it's kind of obvious. It's like you can't really mess it up. I hate when somebody says this t-shirt and this pair of jeans looks really nice. It's like, I mean, it's a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. It's like, can it not look nice? It's like, does that even warrant praise? It's one of those fits that's so safe, it hardly even warrants being gassed up unless Alco is wearing it. And that's more so of a character thing than the outfit itself. But I like when people push the threshold. That's just me. But then again, I've always liked that side of art more anyway. People going beyond the boundaries, people trying things that others can say, hey, you're not supposed to do it like that. Oh, these colors don't match. Nah, fuck you, I'm gonna make a match. And he's definitely doing that. What I'm seeing here is like a hot pink palette mixed in with this sea green and the gold. That's what we're leading with, which gold is pretty centric to Indian design in terms of clothing anyway. These bright colors though usually aren't, and that might be one of the most captivating things here. He knew not to do too much. You notice that it's there just enough to let you know that it's present, but it's not pervasive. It's barely in his arms, it's barely on his head. You know, you can see it on the rope, and then the fold that comes out in the front. And if I'm not mistaken, it looks like he's got the hot pink bottoms too, if you can really zoom in and pay attention to the detail down there. But they're essentially all highlights. It's all highlights, and it looks really good. You got the bag, which they decided to completely skip out on highlighting this at all, but with the design work at the top, it doesn't really need it. It kind of stands out on its own. The pink gem at the chest to match the rope, to match the tassel. And unlike what we had going on with Ash, again, you do have these sea green highlights matching his eyes, which just so happened to work in his favor because again, the focal point, there's really no focal point here. It's not like the orange, right? When I say focal point, I mean the color that jumps out at you the most. With her, it was the orange because it was everywhere. You couldn't run away from it. Here, I'm kind of looking at everything. It's a lot more balanced. It doesn't feel like anything necessarily consumes the design altogether because there's just a nice hint of all the colors that's present. There's a nice amount of white, there's a nice amount of gold. There can't be too much of the green because it's highlights. There can't be too much of the pink because again, it's highlights, it's barely there. So honestly, the focal color would be the white, but like I said before, white doesn't jump out at you, especially not a dull white like this. This isn't like white with some type of a glow on it. It's just a casual white. So even though it is the color that shows up the most in his entire design, it still doesn't feel like it dominates everything else because of that. Really good work here. And I'm also noticing that they're running with the same theme of his original palette. If you remember Asclepius's first fits, they ran the same sea green, the same hot pink, just in a different way. You know, he had the hood on in the first design, and then in the last one, he had the all white, which if we're talking about all white fits, I definitely prefer this new one because of the way that the wrap on his head works. The crossover between the eyes with his hair, I feel like that adds a nice hint of balance that the other one didn't. And honestly, the other one was kind of just not as appealing, I would say. I didn't hate it, it's just not as good. You can see that he has his tail out to the back as well. And even in terms of the robes, you can see his back is hanging all the way down to his feet. So I kind of want to see the back angle of these servants. Also, I kind of wish when they did these, they spun them around so we can get the whole thing, like a more three-dimensional take. But this is fine as is. And then finally, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm seeing a lot of people say Hokusai's design makes me feel things. And I gotta say, I cannot confirm or deny that sentiment. I can't, She's taking a page out of Kiara's book. Listen, it almost feels like it's unlike her to be dressed this way. But haven't we said that about multiple servants when they come out with these fits? You never know until it actually gets here. Now, in her case, before we get off into it, this is from Kuroboshi. That's her artist, Kohaku Kuroboshi. And Kuroboshi has done a couple of servants. They've done Jacques Desmoulins, who I also really like. You know, Jacques Desmoulins, that goes for the original in arcade and the female version that we get in the main timeline. Both of them look really good to me. And then they also did Abigail, which again, ever since Salem, I've always liked Abigail's design. All of them. I think her summer fits are misplaced for the age, a lot like Jack, but if those same fits were on somebody else of age, they are good fits. But beyond that, if you notice, they run a very similar theme and they run a lot of the same color palettes, and the same thing can be said here. Even with this new Hokusai that we're getting right now, they're kind of running the same colors and they're killing it. That's why I say there is too much flack for somebody that's just good at what they do. Oh, you keep making the same fit. It's like, bro, if they like using the same colors and they're good at using the same color, let the motherfucker use the colors, man. They're killing it. I just don't see the point of ruining a good thing. It's useless. There are plenty of other people that are gonna go crazy with the color palettes. We know who those people are. But Hokusai, or any servant of Kuroboshi for that matter, because I like all the designs really. Oh, by the way, they did Yang. They did Yang Guifei, who also runs the same palette, who looks exactly like Hokusai. If we're being honest, if we put Yang next to Hokusai, you can't say they don't look like the same character with different outfits on. Am I complaining? No, because they both look good. I don't care. Yes, I can tell the same artist did it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna act like that doesn't bother me sometimes for other people, but it's working for Kuro. Yeah, this is giving real BDSM. It's giving real 50 Shades, okay? I think a lot of it has to do with the fishnets. Every time I see the fishnets, I feel like I'm about to be put under arrest. And let me tell you, there will be no resisting here, officer. And that's where that Kiara reference came from. And that's kind of the first person that you think of when it comes to outfits like these. You got the open slit on what appears to be the skirt. Again, that's just the angle. And then you have more so of a grid design on the skirt itself, which in my case, at least to me, it feels a lot more modern. It seems like this is something that I would see right now from the newest generation, but it works. As you can tell, they bounce off of each other. Again, as we've already mentioned, there's not a lot of colors here. There's black, there's white, there's purple, there's pink. That's pretty much the main gist. I like the way that these gloves match with the straps that she has going on down here in the middle. I like the way that the pink matches with what appears to be the inside of said skirt, and they couple with each other just as good. I like the posture. I appreciate this posture. I feel like if everybody had their own thing going, I would say Ash had the best shading, Asclepius was the most complex, and then Hokusai has the best posture because the way that she's standing, the way that she's leaning with her finger against her mouth, again, gives a very realistic vibe. It feels like a real person. It doesn't just feel like a picture, as if she's honestly getting into it, which makes the outfit itself feel all that more real. You got the board in the back, caution tape, and the stickers. Also, forgot to mention the coloring there with the yellow, but it's so insignificant that doesn't necessarily need to be pointed out that much, but it is there. Again, I like the way that she purposely has her jacket halfway off as a method to show off the most unique elements about her outfit, because I'm gonna be honest, if she was standing up straight and she had the jacket all the way on and she wasn't leaning like she is now, this would be a completely different picture. I promise you, all of that matters. And then we have Hokusai himself over here, who appears to be hovering over clipboard, being hard at work as usual. This is his daughter over here to the side, by the way. And then this is Hokusai himself, the one and only Octodad, the Octo Pimp. Sorry, Pops, I didn't mean to come at your daughter like this, but she knew what she was doing. Okay, that's not my fault. It almost appears like he's trying to do the same thing that she's doing, but he can't because his arms doesn't reach. So he's just like sitting up top on the board chilling. What the hell? Yo, I do wish they kind of did a zoom in on the board itself so we can see what it says. It seems a lot more like sketch outlines. I can see the bullet points, I can see the framework, and then of course they're both rocking the glasses, like father, like daughter, as usual. I appreciated this. I'm excited. You know, right now we're still getting into the thick of it, but just based off of what we've been given so far, this is already looking to be very promising, because like I said, they knocked it out the park with all three of these. When I first seen it pop up on the timeline, I had to stop everything I was doing. I was like, wait a minute, is that baby girl? We need more of that.